Hello and welcome to another Overlord lore video, and thanks to my Patreons for supporting me. Today we are going to dive deep into the awesome writing of the series and into one of the best written scenes in all of fantasy. So, let's begin. At the first impression, the Men of the Kingdom arc, a 560 pages long story, is just another classic and occasionally stereotypical hero's tale. It has so many elements common in so many classical medieval fantasy settings. The good king whose kindness was his downfall, since he was unable to choose a successor. Initially it was believed that he would nominate his eldest son, who should be the rightful heir, but arguably the younger son, who is much smarter, would make a way better king. His indecisiveness has also led to the ascent of a power-hungry noble faction, who, like Duke Ictorn, wanted to take the castle for himself. In between all of this mess, the kind and brilliant Princess Renna is situated, but also barred from power by the unjust nobles and an oppressive society. And at her side stands the young white knight in shining armor, ready to fight and ready to die for her. The kingdom is also threatened by an empire, where a young, cruel emperor who earned his byname by killing off every opposing noble threatens the kingdom with war every year, and the common folk suffers because of it. And were it not for the heroic Gazef Stronov, the strongest man in the kingdom, the emperor might have slaughtered the royal family a long time ago. During all of this, the Eight Fingers, a shady criminal organization involved in every vile and illegal act imaginable, continually expands its power. And despite the best efforts of the princes, they still continue to enslave and violate women. Tuare being one of them, whose life has been made a living hell because of those men. Blue Roses, a heroic all-female adamantite adventurer team, who shouldn't intervene with human politics and solely focus on hunting down monstrous dangers to humanity instead, is still helping the princess in her fight against the corruption and the crime syndicate. During all of this, the rival of Gazef, Brain Anglaus, a former power-hungry and now humbled mercenary, has returned to the city and was taken in by his old rival. He warned Gazef about a far greater emerging power. In a similar act of kindness, a butler escorting a rich and snobby merchant's daughter takes in the former slave Tuare, but the Eight Fingers doesn't like it when somebody interferes with their business, so they come looking for her. During all of this misery, a demonic incursion takes place. Drawn to the capital city in search for an artifact smuggled in by the Eight Fingers, the demon emperor Yaldabaoth invades and drowns the city in a tide of demons. And while a dark hero challenges this enemy of humanity, Blue Roses, the rest of the military, and the Adventurer Guild are busy stopping the minions of the Demon Lord. And while the city burns, Climb, accompanied by Brian Anglaus, tries to save the people of Riestais in the name of Princess Renna. As far as a classic hero's tale goes, this is a really well put together piece of fiction, but the brilliance comes when all of it is deconstructed. While King Ramposa III is generally torn between his duty to his eldest son, as a father, and his duty to the country, aka nominating a worthy successor. And Gazef, Brain, Blue Roses, the Eight Fingers, and of course Climb are really just who they seem to be. Renna's different. She entered a pact with Demiurge, a minion of the Sorcerer King himself, because she wants nothing more than to be together with Climb. And she will pursue this goal with all of her intellectual might. And Ainz, instead of being the brilliant dark overlord that controls all of the events by weaving plans within plans, he is in reality just a clueless human who tries his best to protect and preserve the creation of his friends, who are long gone. And he's also behind the mask of Momon, the Dark Adventurer, the new rapidly ascending adamantite adventurer. And his entire fight with the Demon Emperor was just a mock battle, a ruse to cover up Demiurge's raid, since he as usual had misinterpreted the intent of Ainz to a great degree. Blue Rose's efforts to contain the demons were partially in vain and downright counterproductive. While the normal demons are really just a threat to the general public, Entoma and Blue Roses had the same goal, combating the Eight Fingers. While the statue was just a cover-up story invented by Demiurge, the Eight Fingers were really responsible for the demonic incursion, because they recaptured Tuare, and the very scene where Sebas went from a potential traitor to a confirmed loyalist, and Tuare went from a mere slave girl to somebody under the protection of Ainz Ulgaun's name, is in my opinion a well-crafted masterpiece, and it shall be our main focus for this video. The proof of loyalty. The scene really has taken my breath away because it is written with so much nuance and underlying storylines, intentions and emotions that I just have to analyze it. So let's start with Sebas' perspective. Since the very first contact with the outside world, the Butler of Steel found himself in an odd position. He inherited Touchme's kindness and the strong urge to help people in need. So during his stay in the capital of the Reastyle's kingdom, he presumably helped many people. And we actually saw him acting kind to a random stranger in the 5th novel. An old injured woman has been offered the help of Sebas, and after being distrustful at first, she gladly accepted it. And while many other denizens of Nazarick would be appalled by the thought to interrupt one's mission in order to help an outsider, from Sebas' perspective, he only did what his creator has intended him to do. So once again, after being confronted with the option of helping an injured woman at the verge of death, or to do nothing, he stepped in and helped Tuare. He freed her from the grasp of the 8 fingers, ordered Solution to heal her with a scroll, and gave her a place to stay and a way to earn her living. But all of this happened without an overall plan in mind, and without any way to deal with the 8 fingers that had come after him and Tuare. So while Sebas acted out of kindness, he only reacted to the consequences of it, and once Solution had reported to Ainz that Sebas might have betrayed the Great Tomb, Sebas was forced to make a decision: kill Tuare, the girl he had taken in order to help her, or disobey the will of the 41 Supreme Beings represented by Ainz Ol Gaun. And Sebas was torn between his creator's intent and Ainz's order, so he hesitated for a moment, but in the absence of Touchme, all he could do was to pledge his loyalty to the last remaining Supreme Being, Ainz Ol Gaun. Once he had finally chosen loyalty, he was ready to kill Tuare. But even in this moment he had chosen to use a powerful strike in order to grant her a quick, merciful death. And while the ultimate outcome for Sebas and Tuare was very positive, one can easily make the argument that if Sebas had just ignored her, so much suffering and death could have been prevented, since the demonic incursion, which was in part motivated by retrieving Tuare and punishing the 8 fingers, would have never happened to that extent. To Solution Epsilon, Sebas' behavior was weird, and in stark contrast to her master's absolute order. And remember, Solution is quite smart, so tolerating Sebas' action of taking a random stranger in and waste Nazarick's limited assets on something so lowly like a normal human from the outside, beings she would normally enjoy devouring in a slow, agonizing manner, is extremely odd, especially because Solution could not see any benefits to the tomb in all of these actions. And the only reason why Solution hadn't reported on Sebas instantly was that she also greatly respected him. To the Pleiades and the regular mates, Sebas Tian was an ideal servant, something to aspire to. So in a sense, similar to Sebas later, she was forced to decide between her own respect for Sebas and her duty to Ainz Ol Gaun. And like Sebas Tian, she too had hesitated. To Ainz, who had concluded that after Shalti was mind-controlled, Sebas and Solution would be the next target since both traveled together prior to the incident. His worst fears were seemingly confirmed, but in a sense he was also surprised, since the status of Sebas, as displayed on the guild's own screens, was yet unchanged. So while he had concluded that something like this would happen, unlike the Shalti incidents, he lacked a clear indication whether or not Sebas had betrayed the tomb, and therefore a test was necessary. Together with Demiurge and Pandora's actor, he came up with a plan. Send Pandora's actor in the shape of Ainz with a kill team to Sebas, force him to decide between his girl and his duty to Nazarick, and if the betrayal is confirmed, eliminate him instantly for his actions. And after Cocytus blocked Sebas' deadly punch, and everything was cleared, he was not only relieved, but could even laugh at the back and forth between Sebas, who wanted to preserve Tuare's well-being, and Demiurge, who wanted nothing more than to send her to the Happy Farm in order to get back at Sebas, because this dispute reminded Ainz of the constant back and forth between Ulbert and Touchme. And ultimately, Ainz had chosen to take Tuare in and offered him protection under his very name, and by extent, that of his friends. But in contrast to Sebas, Ainz didn't do so out of sheer kindness But in order to reward Sebas, who from his perspective had done nothing wrong, just followed Touchme's intention, and even more so, as a way to repay Tuare's younger sister, Ninya. She and her book helped Ainz to a great degree in understanding the world. For example, it was Ninya who initially brought up the frost dragons living in the Azalesian mountains. So while Ainz in general was indifferent to outsiders, those who had helped the Great Tomb were still able to get onto his good side. And from the good side we go straight to Demiurge, to whom all of this must have seemed like something he had always known would happen. Back in Yggdrasil, Touchme, Sebas' creator, and Ulbert, Demiurge's creator, were at constant odds, and the two creations inherited their creator's disdain for one another, so Demiurge never trusted or understood Sebas. And after he heard that Sebas possibly betrayed the Great Tomb, Demiurge took it as an absolute certainty, and despite the very Tomb of Nazarick itself still stating that Sebas was loyal, after Solution had reported on Sebas, Demiurge was determined to act. In order to test the loyalty of Sebas, and in order to punish him, he should be forced to kill the girl he cared about so much. And once his betrayal has been proven to Ainz, Sebas would be eliminated. And Demiurge had gone to great length in ensuring the butler's death. Not only was Cocytus with him, who fully armed was able to deliver even more devastating attacks than Sebas himself, and Pandora's actor who currently posed as Ainz, but could take on any form suitable for defeating Sebas. Demiurge also brought Victim, the floor guardian of the 8th floor, with him. And upon Victim's death, enemies in range, aka Sebas, would be hit with a devastating amount of debuffs and unable to flee. And everything Demiurge presumed to be happening was seemingly confirmed once Sebas hesitated to kill Tuare for a moment. But after Sebas cleared his mind, and Cocytus blocked Sebas' punch, and declared it to be deadly without a doubt, and therefore Sebas' loyalty is still untouched, Demiurge still was hell-bent on punishing Sebas for prioritizing an outsider so much, and therefore he tried his best to convince Ainz to send him to his farm. And last but not least, we have Tuare, and her life so far was hell. In her village the work was unbearably hard, food was scarce, and the ruling nobles were cruel. After the local lord had taken her and abused her, she was passed around, abused, violated, and defiled ever since. Overlord's depiction of the life of a medieval farm girl is downright dystopic. So from Tuare's perspective, the undead Overlord Einsulgaun and the Floor Guardians, heteromorph beings with unfathomable power, and in case of Demiurge and Solution an extremely evil intent, were still less frightening to her than mere human men. To her, a monster was something entirely different. Just compare Tuare's reaction, the reaction of an untrained farm girl, to that of Brain Anglaus. Though to be fair, it wasn't only her past experiences that had led to her being able to stand in the same room as these monsters. She also deeply cherished and loved Sebas for saving her from a bleak and hellish life, and for once enabled her to feel happy. So once her time seemingly had come, she had let go of his wrist, and faced her death with a smile on her lips, in order to make it easier for Sebas, who had to kill her on the order of Ainz. But after that, once she was confronted with forgetting everything and going back to her normal life as a villager, with the possibility of being taken in under Ainz, or death, she would have gladly chosen anything but the first option. In the new world there's nothing romantical about living as a peasant, and while countless other stories set in a medieval time, and to construct a good and wholesome fantasy world, Overlord deconstructs these clichés in a brilliant way, while simultaneously employing them to construct such a setting in the first place. And this is it. One of the most brilliantly written scenes in all of Overlord. The background and the individual intent behind this proof of loyalty. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. And special thanks to Al Capone, Andy, Angel of Death, Bad Guy E, Boyzilla, Diabetic Centaur, Dystopia, Felis Catus, Gigafight, Hector Moreno, Hoss, Jason, Chromius, Lord Touch Me, Marcos, Mr. Shoes, Minnow13, Mirtis, Primus 11, Sasuga Einsama, Surge, Sparkly Unicorn, and Vash Hawkeye. Thanks guys. So anyway, have a nice day, over and out.